Hello and welcome to Spyhards podcast, where your hosts go deep undercover into the world of spy movies to decipher which films make the knock list. But don't forget, this information is strictly for your ears only. I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur. Never an asset, always an afterthought.
I thought you were just going to say always an ass.
That too. I put the ass in asset.
You do. And it's a huge one.
Thank you.
I can see it from Vancouver.
That's right.
Well, we're diving back into the world of the Equalizer this week. The second outing for Robert McCall, Denzel Washington's only real franchise.
Yeah, unless you count him being part of the Gladiator franchise, but yeah.
I mean, is he in the post-credits of the Russell Crowe film that I didn't check out or something?
No, he's not, but he is part of that franchise being in the sequel.
Russell Crowe goes to the viewer, there's a disturbance in space, and then the Fantastic Four vehicle with Robert McCall on top comes flying out. Spoilers for the new Avengers, folks.
If there's ever a sidequel to Gladiator 2, then Denzel might pop up.
Okay. I'll look forward to that, never seeing that. Well, to be fair, how long would it take to get Gladiator 2?
That's true, but also, if Magnificent Seven had been a little more successful, he would have had another franchise.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I actually saw that in theaters. It was all right.
Yeah, I enjoyed it well enough. I've watched all of the originals, and, nothing's going to touch...
All 7 of them.
They only made 4, oddly enough, in the old days, but...
So far, Cam. So far.
We covered the first one on the Patreon, had a lot of fun with it. The sequels aren't very good, and I would put the new one on par with, or better than, a number of the sequels from the original series.
Well, there you go. That's Cam's hot take on the Magnificent Seven franchise.
A hot take on a franchise that is well in the rearview mirror.
It's very cold, is what you're trying to say.
Can you imagine how many listeners we would have if we did nothing but cover Magnificent Seven content, including like the TV show attempts?
Well, the hint is in the title.
7 downloads?
Yeah.
Okay. And 2 of them are us.
Of all time.
That's the entire catalog.
Across all the episodes. Yeah, that's it. The Magnificent Seven, truly.
The Podtastic 7.
even like people who have it on automatic download, their phones would turn that off because they're like, you don't want to listen to this. No.
Well, it's like it would only go to rotary phones, I feel like, that podcast.
Who wants to reach all the way around to 7? Like, it's just too far. Like,
That's right.
Yeah, no one does that. Well, speaking of podcast apps,
yes,
as far as segues go, this is pretty seamless. This week, Robert McCall has a new job. He's a Lyft driver, or an Uber driver, it depends where you come. But Lyft was a company. I don't know if it still is a company.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Cam works for them currently, apparently.
I'm on the road right now.
Toot toot. And he always wants 5 stars.
Yeah.
He demands it. He'll go and beat you up and break your vertebrae if you don't, frankly. And we're not that mean.
Yet.
Right. So that's the mild threat. Mild peril will be found in this podcast, and that is it.
Right. Yeah, we haven't reached the Denzel age yet, but by the time we get there, boy, bones are going to be snapping.
I mean, it's like the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, and then the Denzel Age.
The greatest of ages.
We're living in it, really, right now, I'd say.
I would say so, and it's a great time to be alive.
Post-Gladiator 2, it's the Denzel Age. We are breaking bones.
That's right, yeah.
But, we put the call out a couple of years back. We've been collecting 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you become one, you become a Spyhards diehard by leaving a written review on Apple Podcasts. I mean, you can leave a 5-star review without writing anything, but we don't see those. We only see when you've written something.
Yeah.
And when we get them in, when we get a chance, we'll read one out to say thank you for the 5-star review, and we won't be breaking your bones specifically.
That's right.
And this week's 5-star review comes in from a wonderful country I spent a couple of weeks in last year, drinking far too much and sunbathing far too much. I was sunbathed too much, they threw me out the country.
You hit the quota.
Yeah, they'd seen enough of me by that point. They're like, no, thank you, Mr. Hardy. And that is, of course, Mexico.
Yes.
A great country. I think it's one of our first from Mexico as well. So hello to all our listeners in Mexico. Hope you're all doing well, and that Bond isn't ruining any of your parades.
Right. Yeah. And that, well, you are still proud of being kind of in a Bond movie. I guess Isthmus. Oh, you're right. Actually, I didn't even think of Spectre with the parade at the start. That's incredible. I was thinking of Isthmus, the fake country that they filmed in Mexico, but then used for License to Kill.
Isn't that meant to be Cuba, which is an entirely different country?
Yeah, but it was all shot in Mexico, right?
Okay. Well, I suppose a lot of License to Kill was shot in Mexico. A lot of
Yes.
the studios were used down there as well. Same studio that was used for the David Lynch's Dune, funnily enough.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but I used to know what that was called. Good research, Scott.
Mm.
And the wonderful person sending in that 5-star review is Ed Martinez SRV. Thank you, Ed. And they say, great show. Take a detour for listening to Agents Cam and Scott. If the spy genre is your thing, this podcast is for you.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Ed. That's very kind. And, it's always great to hear from listeners who appreciate what we do week to week.
And I also think, like, if the spy genre isn't for you, this is also a great podcast to listen to because a lot of people are masochists.
Very true.
If you just hate yourself and hate spy movies, maybe this is also the podcast for you.
Maybe it is.
Maybe. But one thing you do get, along with our congratulations, is a code name, a secret code name that you can use in all spy circles to let someone know you're a Spyhards diehard. And I'm going to hand it over to my esteemed colleague, and I use the word esteemed loosely to fill us in.
That's right. Well, this is a tough one because, like, you could be super, like, basic and just say, your codename is Equalizer. But, like, come on. How lazy is that? Plus, if we read a 5-star review on our Equalizer 3 episode, what am I going to do then? It just kind of, like, loses the luster. Plus, was it ever that original to start with? So this movie doesn't have any sort of, like, Operation Blank kind of name for me to draw from, or a MacGuffin, like the rabbit's foot or something to pull from.
Sure.
So I think I'm going to take an element from this movie and say that his code name is Hurricane.
Oh.
Right?
Okay. Is it the Hurricane or just Hurricane?
Hurricane.
Cam just likes saying the word hurricane.
Hurricane.
There it is. Hurricane.
That's, well, not as cool.
No. You tried to introduce that in secondary school, right? To get everyone to call you that, and they were like, no.
Yeah. It didn't work.
Didn't work. Well, there you go. Ed Martinez, thank you for the review. Enjoy your new Spyhards Diehards nickname. Use it wherever you'd like. Maybe in Starbucks when you're ordering a coffee. Just say, my name's Hurricane.
Oh, that's awesome. That would be the best. You'll be so popular.
Anyone who's ever had a Spyhards Diehard nickname, if you can use it on a Starbucks coffee and get a picture of it and send it in,
oh my god,
I will send you some Spyhards goodies. I'm drawing a line in the sand right now. I will make this happen. If you go to Starbucks with your Spyhards Diehard name, get them to write it on the cup and then send us a photo of the drink with the name on it, I will make it happen. Send it, the proof, to contact@spyhards.com. There'll be a link in the show notes below for our email. I want to see you guys, shine. Bring it on.
It starts with you, Hurricane.
It all starts with you, Hurricane. Well, let's fly into our review.
I mean, I can't believe you would say fly when he's a driver.
All right, Cam, it's time for the Equalizer sequel. Sequelizer. Yeah. I'm sure we'll be saying that. What are we talking about?
They were referring to it, I think, as Sequelizer on the set, I believe, is kind of a joke. Hilarious.
Oh, hilarious. A real knee slapper that one was. I bet Denzel was killing it.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, this is our second go around with Robert McCall. We had a lot of fun with the first one. We had a great interview there with Richard Wenk, the writer of all three films. One of the great dive into the franchise and give us all kind of the detail interviews. And so it's kind of fun to be back here with, of course, 2018's Equalizer 2, starring Denzel Washington and directed by Antoine Fuqua.
Yeah, I as I said in the first review, I've seen the first and the third one. So this is the only one I hadn't seen.
Right, that's interesting, yeah.
So I have actually in my head now completed the McCall trilogy, unless they do make 5.
Sure, which there's at least a fourth one, I think, coming. At least.
I think while Denzel's still got the willpower to do action sequences, yeah.
Well, judging from some of the martial arts in this movie, I don't know that Denzel needs to be that present for the martial arts, but,
What are you trying to say?
Well, there's a fight scene on a tower at the end of this movie where it was quite clearly a body double, but that's fine. That's fine. I'd be doing the same thing if I was, frankly now. Forget being his age. Even now, I'd be like, can someone else do this? I'm tired.
Well, like Denzel Washington, I guess.
I
That took
guess.
me so much time to come up with that it wasn't worth it.
And the blank stare back from me made it all just a huge triumph in your eyes.
I mean, that is literally what happens when I tell any joke on this podcast. It's just a blank stare. If anything, I could just draw on my own screen right now. I could put a blank piece of paper over your box, and it would actually be more interactive.
It's just like a pause and then. So, anyways, the production then jumped into the second phase. It's like me just getting back to my notes.
A little behind the scenes here, folks. Listen to Cam in some of our interviews sometimes, and you can absolutely tell when he wants to change topics because his response is, "Mm-hmm." So anyway, I'm really interested, and you'll just pivot into something completely different. So I know when you want to move on when you just give me that sort of, "Mm-hmm."
I guide. I'm lighting the way. I am racing up ahead with the lantern, and everyone's following.
Look, listen. People say that sometimes our episodes run too long. You're trying to keep us on track. I'm blabbering right now, so I guess we'll just sum this up with,
Or also my usual, right.
Oh, that's the other one. That actually stings me when I hear it. It's triggering for me.
I know. Well, there you go.
Use it sparingly, Cameron, but please do continue.
Will do. Right.
Okay, well, Equalizer 2 time. If you've not seen the Equalizer, here is the letterbox.com synopsis. And it's surprisingly brief.
That sounds about right. Modern era.
Yeah. The Equalizer 2, there is no equal.
Okay.
Well, there is. I mean, there's technically two, isn't there?
Well,
Robert McCall, who serves an unflinching justice for the exploited and oppressed, embarks on a relentless globe-trotting quest for vengeance when his former partner is murdered.
Yeah, it's like I was saying modern era, and that feels like a lot of synopses of this time period and going forward where, you'll see like a synopsis, for example, for something like Avengers Endgame, which is a very massive and unwieldy film, and it'll be like, I don't know.
The Avengers assemble to restore mankind.
Exactly. I don't even know if they'd say that. They would be like, Earth's mightiest Avengers must unite to defeat Thanos once and for all.
Do battle with the evil Thanos. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like super generic because they're just like, we don't want to give anything away. Although, to be fair, I say that, the synopsis for Equalizer 2 does indicate that his partner dies, so there is that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Pedro Pascal was his partner.
Okay, so I was a little murky on this as well, because he does refer to Denzel as being his partner at a certain point. They were part of a unit in the military, so it would have been Melissa
With Bill
Leo.
Pullman's wife.
Yes, Melissa Leo was a member of that, and then so was Pedro Pascal. Now, here's where I'm confused. Wasn't in the original, didn't they kind of establish that Bill Pullman was also part of like his coworker team?
Yeah, they were like both retired together. That's the idea I got.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. They don't indicate that one as much in this movie, but I would assume it was like a 4-part unit.
Well, it's one of those things like it's that trope of man's wife dies, man goes on tirade to take down the baddies.
Yeah,
or whatever, like Taken in a sense, like trying to bring your wife or your daughter back. Bill Pullman's like, oh, she died. I'm just going to cry for a bit.
Yeah.
Good for him, because I'm not going out with a gun to take vengeance. I'm just be like, oh, I'm going to be sad for a while.
Yeah, it's like once he became an author, he just lost his edge, I suppose. But it's also like, Leo, Denzel, Bill Pullman, they're in a similar kind of age category. Like Pedro Pascal is significantly younger. And so it's like, well,
maybe he was the rookie on the team or something.
He must have been, right? He must have been like a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I've got a lot of notes about Pedro in this.
Sure.
It's interesting. It is interesting. Like, this is, I mean, what year was this? I should have it written down. 2018. And I just made a Fantastic Four joke at the beginning of this episode, and that's 2025, and he's the lead of that film.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get back to Pedro, but I hadn't seen this film, so it was first watch. But did you catch this in theaters, Cam?
Yes, I did. I went to Equalizer 2 with my dad. Didn't go with him to see the first one, as I noted in the previous review, but with the second one and the third, I went with him for both of them because my dad was someone who watched the Equalizer TV series, which was something it seems that no one involved in the creative team really did, because we talked to Richard Wenk. He was not a fan of the TV show outside of, watching some episodes when he was going to do the job. And I found an interview actually for researching this one with Antoine Fuqua, the director. He was not someone who watched the show either. He said it was his, I think he said something like it was your grandfather's show. It was not like the focal point he was looking to for influences in terms of where to take this franchise. But yeah, so I took my dad, and I think I walked out of it feeling like it wasn't quite as good as the first one. It didn't grab me the same way. And I remember being genuinely a little surprised when there was an Equalizer 3, because I felt like this one was a little bit of it did fine, but it was kind of like a non-starter as a kind of a confidence booster for future movies.
Sure. So, you felt it was a bit of a step down, all in all.
Not a big one, but it felt like one of those movies where you watch it and you go, okay, cool. There we go.
Yeah, like a real sort of 2-star, 2.5-star film where you just have it on in the background while you're folding laundry, Netflix style thing.
Yeah, it's like, well, it has some cool action moments, but not a lot stuck with me. Like, honestly, before I rewatched it for the show, I really only remembered Pedro Pascal as being the villain, and also the Miles subplot.
I mean, that's basically it.
I suppose it is. I suppose I had a pretty good memory then for the movie.
You remembered the whole film.
But it's also like, it's a 2-hour movie, and it feels like, at least in my memory, was like those were kind of two smaller elements of it. But when you watch the movie, you're like, oh no, I guess that is mostly the movie.
Yeah, there's a couple of little straggler storylines in there. The mother and daughter with the bookshop stuff is kind of there, and some other things, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I did remember Melissa Leo being killed in the movie. Not necessarily the details of that, but I remember that being kind of the instigator for the plot. But yeah, it's funny because if you were to ask me about the first one in the wake of seeing it a few years later, I would have remembered a lot of details of that first Equalizer. And sitting here now, I recall a lot of details of Equalizer 3.
But that also could just be recency bias because you saw that last year.
Sure, but if you'd have asked me when I was seeing Equalizer 2 about the first one, I would have been able to give you a lot of details.
Fair. Okay. Well, let's get into the backstory. A film that many people would not have thought had a sequel.
A sequel, yeah, a sequelizer.
Are you just doing it again?
I am doing it again, yeah.
Is that just what this episode's going to be?
That's right.
Okay. I really wanted that pregnant pause in there just so everyone could reflect on what they've started listening to.
Fair enough.
Question your choices, folks. Question your choices. I'm kidding. Let's get into it. How did we end up with a sequel to the Equalizer?
So this sequel was basically in the cards right when they were making the original. Sony, just prior to the release of the 2014 film, were really, really excited about the test scores they were getting showing that movie to people. And they were like, okay, back up the sequel train, here we go. And they announced around that time period that Richard Wenk would be coming back to write a sequel to The Equalizer. Now, director Antoine Fuqua was a lot cagier. He was basically on the press rounds for the first one saying, we're going to leave it up to the audience and Denzel. And that was kind of where he left it. It was not a, we can't wait to come back. It was a, we'll see kind of thing.
Which I think is fair when Denzel is your lead. And he had never done a sequel to this point.
Yeah, and Antoine Fuqua was actually quoted on the press rounds of the first one saying, it's such an interesting character. It could be more international. This is a guy who could work in Home Mart one day or go blend in while living in Italy. There's room for development and evolution.
And Italy became Turkey, and then in the sequel, in the third one, became Italy.
Well, it's also like he was outlining what would become Equalizer 3.
Yeah.
It's clear that in his mind, when he was doing press for the first film, he saw the sequel being more what the third one was.
I always said I have questions when we maybe get to the third one, because I think they set up some stuff at the end of this
Yeah.
that is not resolved.
Right. And we'll get to that, I think, in a few moments. So ultimately, it took a few years for the Equalizer 2 to show up. And in that time, Richard Wenk, who we talked about, we gave all the backstory to Richard Wenk in the first Equalizer film, so I'm not going to do that again. But in that time, he did the WWE film Countdown, starring Kane and Dolph Ziggler. Scott, have you ever seen this?
I've seen those wrestlers before. I've not seen the film.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see it either. But he did that. He did the Magnificent Seven remake, working with Antoine Fuqua and Denzel again.
Sure.
He worked on Jack Reacher, Never Go Back, and a film called American Renegades, and then rolled from those into Equalizer 2. So he was very busy between Equalizer 1 and 2.
How many years are there in between them?
4 years.
Wow, that's a lot of work in 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the WWE one was probably bashed out in a day, let's be honest, but the rest of it felt like work.
And Magnificent Seven was like a major movie. Like, that was bringing that whole team together, and I think they were hoping at the time to make Magnificent Seven something akin to the first Equalizer, where it's like going to be an ongoing franchise, because you had Chris Pratt signing up as well in that team. You had Vincent D'Onofrio. It was actually a really fun movie, I thought.
Yeah, I thought like it was a good modernization of. Well, it wasn't a modernization; it was still a period piece, but like a good modern retelling of it in a sense.
Yeah,
I don't think it quite captured the magic of the original, but it was fun.
But it did, like, I think, tap into what makes like a Western work. It didn't feel like they were trying to do some sort of like almost embarrassed revisionist Western, like, oh, we know Westerns are lame, but, you know, yeah, here you go. We'll do something that the kids might like. I like that they seem to really look to classic Westerns as something to honor versus something to be kind of like, okay, we got to pave over that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always get confused because around the same time you had Hateful Eight and you had the Six film as well, the Adam Sandler Six, whatever it was.
Oh, I think it was Ridiculous Six.
Sure.
Yeah, that's right. I can't believe you remember that movie.
Why is that?
Says a lot about Scott's Netflix habits.
Things get recommended to me. Doesn't mean I click on them.
More than 5 times.
It's one of those. Well, yeah, 6 times actually.
You made it a ridiculous 6.
I did. I stopped there. It was too ridiculous after that. You can't go full 7.
No, you have to save that for a different film.
A magnificent film.
That's right. The most magnificent film. And so in that time, Antoine Fuqua directed, obviously, Magnificent Seven. He also did the Jake Gyllenhaal boxing film Southpaw, which I never saw.
Okay.
I think it got, reasonable reviews. He also worked in TV a lot. He produced TV shows based on movies he directed, Training Day and Shooter, as well as some other shows.
Did they do well?
I don't think either one of them had much of a life, but they went I think Shooter went like a couple seasons.
Okay. I haven't even seen the film, so.
I would say my memories of the details of Equalizer 2 are significantly better than my memories of the movie Shooter.
Coming to a Patreon near you.
Shooter. And Fuqua likened this Equalizer series to Westerns, actually, as a mix between Westerns and gritty 70s action thrillers, which shows to me he's very much on the same page as Richard Wenk when we talk to him.
Big Michael Winner fan.
Wow.
He made a lot of those films in the 70s, to be fair.
He did, and those Death Wish movies were very influential. Yeah.
It was a joke, but there was some truth to it, probably.
That's right. And this was, for both Antoine Fuqua and Denzel Washington, their first ever sequel.
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah, and I mean, with Antoine Fuqua...
That's not an indictment, by the way. That's not me saying I think the movie's bad. I just think, Denzel is a high caliber actor. Like, you can argue if he's an A-lister or B-lister. We can get into that discussion another day.
Yeah.
Antoine Fuqua hadn't done films particularly that really warranted sequels.
Right.
So this was probably the first one that they walked away and said, there's more to this character.
I mean, I guess, Fuqua, if he was heavily pressured, could have been pushed into like a Training Day 2 where it's Ethan Hawke with like another partner or something, but like that would have been so lazy.
Wait,
And
is it Training Day to train harder?
I guess so. Like that like a different studio would have pushed that really hard.
I bet someone
Uh,
did.
I'm sure someone pitched that at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, some lazy studio exec. Sure.
Yeah, but when it comes to Denzel, I'm even thinking of like because he was being asked about this on the press tour about this being his first sequel,
Mm-hmm.
and he was saying, "I don't know, I've never really been asked." And when I really look at the history of Denzel Washington films, I'm like, well, which ones would you even made sequels to in that time period?
Well, let's have a look.
I mean, there's his like classic Spike Lee films, stuff like Glory, Courage Under Fire. Philadelphia. These are not movies that lend themselves to follow-ups.
Man on Fire?
No, that one doesn't work.
Okay.
If Pelican Brief had been like the biggest hit in the world, maybe they would have made a Pelican Brief too. I don't know.
Does he have a big part in Crimson Tide?
Yes, yeah, he's like the lead of the movie or co-lead with Gene Hackman.
I thought Gene Hackman was the lead. Okay, fine. Yeah, maybe.
The only one that I think was a missed opportunity, and I think Denzel would actually agree with this, was Devil in a Blue Dress, which was a kind of neo-noir series about a character named Easy Rollins that the movie did not perform that well, but it was based on a book series, and I think he probably would have liked to have played that character again. I know he's talked about it a lot in press interviews.
Just taking a look at that one now. Okay. Yeah. I could see that having legs as like another case for him to tackle.
Yeah, like that's the only one that jumps to mind, but also that movie wasn't a hit in the theaters, so I can also understand no one was asking him to make a sequel.
Oh, I mean, the other one I'm sure he pitched many times is a sequel to, I'm sure, everyone's favorite piece of Denzel Washington work, and that is Mother Goose, a rapping rhyming special.
Oh, what is that?
It is. He played Humpty Dumpty. He played Humpty Dumpty, and the Crooked Man is a voice work. I think it's an Oprah. Is it Oprah? I can't say Oprah. Oh, it is Oprah. Yeah. Oprah's on the cover of it. I think she's Mother Goose.
Okay.
Here's a synopsis, everyone. Strap in. Feeling underappreciated, Mother Goose has decided to quit her job and move away for early retirement. But nothing in fairy tale land seems right without Mother Gooseberg's rhymes. It's up to the nursery rhyme characters to convince her to stay.
Is this feature length or is this like a half-hour thing?
It is 34 minutes.
Yeah, so it's some sort of like TV feature.
And it won an award. Can you guess what the award was?
No, it wasn't like a Emmy or something, was it?
It wishes it was an Emmy. It was a Cable Ace Award for Best Children's Special.
Oh, okay. Okay, well maybe that. Stay tuned for the Patreon, folks.
I just want to know if Denzel Washington actually raps on there.
I would be shocked if he did.
I need to find this out. Also, Jimmy Smits is on it, so it's nice that he turned up for one gig instead of Andor Season 2.
Yeah, okay, well, there you have it. Something to dive into in the deep archives there. And so when it came to what drew Denzel back to the sequel, what really grabbed him
Money
was the relationship between him and the Miles character played by Ashton Sanders. Yeah, Denzel has plenty of money. Denzel doesn't really need the money.
He's got that rapping rhyming money. What more does he need?
That's right.
Mother Goose laid an egg in his bank account. Am I right?
I read an interview with Denzel, and you could just tell, even though it was text, that it was a very kind of like chilly interview where it was a lot of like one sentence responses.
Mm-hmm.
And Denzel can be known to be a tough interview for sure. I mean, this guy's been doing interviews for how many decades? And it was a lot of the interviewer trying to like get kind of into his process for the performance.
Right.
And it was a lot of Denzel's response being like, that's not the way I think about things. And just leaving it. And you could tell the interviewer was kind of floundering in text. I can't imagine the audio of that one. But they finally kind of gave up on that kind of line of questioning and just asked him what drew him back. And he said it was the relationship between him and the Ashton Sanders Miles character.
Sure.
And that meant a lot to him as a father. And he saw a lot of things that he was interested in exploring. So while a lot of people I think were showing up to the Equalizer 2 because they want to see, Denzel kicking butt and a lot of bloody action, for
Yep.
Denzel, that was what brought him back.
I completely understand that, and I think I even noted that down. I think this was probably Denzel's most interesting part of the film for him.
It feels very sincere and earnest, right?
Yeah, and almost mildly personal.
Yeah. Yeah, and Denzel does have sons, so it makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, if this was, I don't know how it quite works, but like I don't know how involved Denzel was in the writing of 2. I know we spoke to Richard Wenk, but we didn't get into that much into the weeds as to who was pitching in. They're all credited just to Richard.
Yeah.
But Denzel is an exec producer.
Yeah.
One wonders if that was a different character at some point, and then Denzel changed it into a character for a topic he wanted to talk about. Because it feels like someone who's like, I've either seen my sons go this way, or I'm worried about my sons going this way, and I just want to like do the protective dad thing.
Right. Yeah, or even like that was an element of the script and he was like, I'd like more of that, please. More of that.
Yeah, like please add more, because we'll jump ahead for a second. They set up Miles by the end as sort of being part of his life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Guy fucks off to Italy in the next film. He doesn't even mention the kid.
I know. Well, it's that kind of episodic adventure series, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm not going. I didn't go into 3 thinking about this because I didn't know he existed. But I don't think many people in their reviews for 3 were like, "Where's Miles?"
Right. I guess it's a bit like the Chloe Grace Moretz thing, where it's like they're very close in that first one, but he never mentions her here.
Hmm.
Yeah. And according to Antoine Fuqua, the Melissa Leo fight scene, he did have to tone it down. It was significantly more brutal in the edit, and so there was some bits taken out.
I felt like there was more there because you obviously see that bit with Pedro, which is on some sort of like camera, or was it a flashback or whatever it was,
Yeah.
killing her. But I felt like she should have put up more of a fight. But I guess that's probably what we didn't see. That's why they closed the door.
I was genuinely shocked how brutal it was.
Yeah.
On the revisit, I was going like, wow, like this is a lot rougher than I thought it was from my memory. And yeah, I think there was kind of like a line they were trying to walk along where they want Melissa Leo to be capable and be fighting back. But at the same point, I think when it came to what actually ultimately subdued her, it was probably pretty brutal on screen.
And also, I mean, say you gave it another 60 seconds of her fighting.
Yeah.
What does that do?
Well, exactly.
What's it offering to the plot? What's it offering to the momentum? Not a lot.
It's like, how do you present this violence in a kind of realistic, sort of stomach-turning way without it feeling exploitive?
You gave her several moments where she fought back. She grabbed like items around the room. She did the whole Jason Bourne thing. She was just overpowered. It was 2-1.
Yeah.
Simple. And so you gave her a moment of like shine. You gave her a little shininess, and then they overcame her. It's fair enough.
Yeah, I agree. And so Pedro Pascal, who, as you noted, is going to be the lead of Fantastic Four, huge star, The Last of Us, The Mandalorian. At this point in time, I remember hearing his name a lot. I wasn't that aware of who he was because he was mostly known for TV. He was coming off of Game of Thrones and Narcos.
Yeah.
He'd also done The Kingsman 2, and I think that was my first exposure to him.
Right.
But he was definitely someone who was on the rise, not yet a star.
I had seen him in Game of Thrones.
Right.
He had a 1-season arc, maybe 2.
I think it's 7 episodes or something. Yeah.
Well, it's the 1 season, that's fine. And I think that started a trend of the way he gets killed in several films after this, including this film, that I want to bring up later.
Okay. And so the budget for this movie was $62 million, just up $7 million from the first, so not a big jump.
Sure.
Domestically did 102.1, international 88.3, for a worldwide total of 190.4, and that is just a little bit under the first, which did 192.3. So basically, $2 million less.
Not bad.
No, not bad at all.
I mean, you want it to grow, of course.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like there wasn't an audience for it. I mean, maybe it just came out the wrong week.
Well, exactly. And $2 million is basically like a rounding error in Hollywood math.
Sure.
So they go, okay, well, you know what? People still like these. We will at some point make a third. It landed at number 46 for the year at the worldwide box office between Christopher Robin, I don't know if people remember that movie, the Disney film with Ewan McGregor and Haley Atwell.
I remember seeing bits of it, but I don't remember. I don't think I ever actually saw the whole thing.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters with my mom actually.
Okay.
And it was fine. It was charming.
Mhm.
So it was one spot above, and just below was a movie called Project Gutenberg, which was a Hong Kong crime thriller with Chow Yun-fat.
And Steve Gutenberg.
Well, it's funny, like you see that name, and I think as a North American, it's your duty to recognize the might of Steve Gutenberg, who I actually just saw at the Calgary Fan Expo like a week ago.
Uh-huh.
So he was fresh in my mind when I saw that title.
What was the best Gutenberg moment? Can you give us some goop?
I will say this: he's a great panelist at a convention.
Has he done any spy films?
No, he has not that I can think of.
Mm.
But he's just someone who's like very like funny, engaging, and has like great stories. He's someone who's written his memoirs, so I think he has a lot of these stories kind of internalized.
Sure.
And no matter what topic he was hit with, he had like a funny story to go with it. And I was able to ask him in person about working with Johnny Five in Short Circuit, so I can die happy now.
What did he say?
So basically, I asked him about the practicalities of working with that robot
Mhm.
in the film, and he said, "Well, he said, it was one of those things where like it came to life when you worked with it. It could be very difficult, though. It had 10 operators, and so sometimes you'd be doing a take and like an arm would drop or something. But he said there was a moment. The operators had all left. He was just working lines with a co-star, and he made a joke, and he could have sworn that Johnny Five smiled and gave him the thumbs up."
I mean, how much weed had he smoked that very day?
Johnny Five was alive. That's all we can say.
It's also the amount of weed he smoked. 5 pounds, of course.
Johnny Five was smoking it too.
He was creative. He was puffing it out.
That's right. That's right. Then he short circuited.
Hey, well done.
Hey.
Well done.
And yeah, the top three for the year. Number 1 was Avengers Infinity War. Number 2 was Black Panther. And number 3 was Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And Antoine Fuqua on the press tour for Equalizer 2 was asked about a third, and he said, "If the audience says so, we'll find out."
I wanted to leave another pregnant pause. No kidding. I was just reading something. It's an interesting world with the symmetry of like a Marvel film taking the top spot, and we're talking about Marvel films many years later. We just haven't left that universe yet, have we? We're still part of it.
You say that, but when it comes to, in future years when we're reading out the top films of 2025, I would be surprised if I'm naming Marvel movies in the top 3.
Yeah, I guess it probably won't make this year unless Fantastic Four does gangbusters.
I just think you've got obviously Minecraft, you've got the Lilo and Stitch remake coming up. I just think like even if Fantastic Four does well, I don't think it's going to crack that top 3.
Maybe not. And I'm just looking through Steve Gutenberg's IMDb. The only film I can see that might have some potential, and it probably isn't enough, is a film called The Man Who Wasn't There.
The Bill Murray movie?
No.
Oh, no. You talking about the Coen Brothers movie with Billy Bob Thornton?
Nope.
Oh.
It's a Bruce Mammoth film with Jeffrey Tambor and Steve Gutenberg.
What year is this?
1983. This is before Police Academy.
Okay.
We'll have a look. We'll research it and let you know, folks.
Okay.
You could be Gutenberg his way into Spyhards.
Maybe he will.
Maybe we do. Okay. Well, that's Equalizer 2 set up, I guess.
It is indeed, yes.
Well, I hadn't seen it, so why don't I lead us off?
That's what I've been waiting to hear, yeah.
You just want to rest, do you?
I do. I'm tired.
You are. Go equal lie down.
Oh my god.
Hey, I tried with that. It was a bit better than some of my other ones so far. Anyway.
Where's my pregnant pause?
When I started watching this, I started questioning why we even need a sequel in the first place.
Mm.
Not to say the first one was perfect, because it didn't make the knock list, but I'm not too sure how much of a spy movie it was either. But like, what is there to mine from this character? And it turned out there were some things to talk about. So like, I was kind of satisfied on that front. But overall, I just found it to be like, just less compelling than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
There was some good action sequences, some good character moments. It probably went on a touch too long. It did the same thing the first film did, which is really hide the villain for a while.
I don't know. Did the first one hide the villain?
You didn't really get a proper named villain until like 45 minutes.
That's true. Once Teddy shows up, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And Pedro Pascal isn't really revealed to be the villain until the hour mark.
Or even later? Is it the hour mark?
It's the hour mark, more or less.
Oh, interesting. Because it's a 2-hour movie. I'm surprised it's at the halfway point.
Yeah. But then, the performances are great. You've got Denzel Washington fully committed to this character. He is going all in on Robert McCall. And so, I can't hate this film. I enjoyed it. The 2 hours did more or less fly by. But I just felt like it was one of those things where it was diminishing returns. Like, there was just less to say here.
Right.
And we'll get to the third at some point this year and talk about whether that upped the ante or not. But I think your initial reaction to it walking out of the theaters back in 2018 is about how I felt with it this afternoon.
Yeah, I think I rewatching it maybe liked it a touch more.
Okay.
But I still feel very similarly in that when I watched the first one, all the elements feel like they really tie together really well.
Mm-hmm.
You have Denzel meeting this, human trafficking victim. He's also working at Walmart, and the way they tie these things together felt pretty organic.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it was really having to bend over backwards. Whereas with this movie, I think my biggest problem is a lot of it is driven by this kind of murky, Pedro Pascal intelligence plot.
Not sure what's quite going on there. Is he working for the agency? Isn't he? I don't know.
There's a lot of dirty dealings going on because they're hiring drug addicts to basically kill Melissa Leo.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to cover things up and kill people. And it's like, okay, this is kind of getting into that murky intelligence work kind of stuff that, can fuel some really great spy films. But there is a very human element to the Robert McCall character. He's someone who connects with people. And we saw that in the first film with Chloe Grace Moretz, and plus his team at Walmart. And here we see it with people in his community, like
Mm-hmm.
Miles, or the older guy he picks up in his Lyft, played by Orson Bean. But none of these things feel as organically tied to what the overall crisis is versus the first film. It was like Denzel's life being kind of pulled into the human trafficking in a way that made sense. These are street criminals who would be people more likely to engage with kind of his day-to-day life. Whereas here, when you're having Miles get kidnapped, it's like, well, hold on. This feels like very movie-ish.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like it's kind of like these two things are... Yeah, the fact that Miles just happens to be in his house at the time that Pedro Pascal's team of intelligence goons show up is like, well, this feels like it's kind of bending over backwards to make this work. And it doesn't quite connect with me. I sit there and feel very indifferent to the Denzel's past life with Melissa Leo and their intelligence work. I don't have a good sense of really what his relationship with Pedro Pascal even was.
No.
And so I kind of walk out going well, it has some really well shot action. Antoine Fuqua has some beautiful shots. There's a shot of a burning car by the water that's beautiful, ready to be framed. And it's those touches that I enjoy, and the moments where I'm watching just intense Denzel Washington be intense Denzel Washington, that will always be entertaining to me. But there's just something, I think, just slight off with this one that doesn't quite connect to me the same way.
It's interesting because I do agree with the sort of cinematography side of things. It's one of my likes, and I'll come back into it. But yeah, the film isn't able to really weave the story together, all the disparate plots it's got going on, specifically the Miles stuff. It is an interesting concept that he wants to mine about the relationships with fathers and sons. I think specifically, I'm guessing people of color, because that's what they're sort of going through, all the sort of gang culture with the kid.
Well, exactly, the threats posed to a black youth
in a city youth, all that sort of stuff. The school's not cool, the gang culture is appealing because I can get money now, all that sort of stuff. I understand that story, but that doesn't connect to the Pedro Pascal CIA betrayal story at all. Even thematically, they're not the same thing.
Yes.
So you're just weaving it together for the sake of having a bit of peril.
Yeah, it's not like what Pedro Pascal is up to somehow impacts this.
No.
At all. Like, there's no even, like, by 6th degree, these two things connect. It's still, like, very distant worlds from one another in terms of what the two plots going on are. And it just, like Seinfeld, the TV show, was so beautiful about, like, threading the needle between what their subplots were into one big story by the end of an episode. But there was the odd one where you'd sit there and be like, well, that's a real stretch. And that's how I felt with this movie.
Well, the simple fact is, if Pedro Pascal hadn't sussed out that it was a false mirror,
yeah,
or if Miles hadn't have stayed late to paint the room, he wouldn't have been in that final sequence. There's nothing else tying them together. That's it. That's literally the only tie between those two stories.
Yeah, it feels like more coincidence-based stuff, that Miles is just there. And that is a really well-done sequence.
Sure.
Where he's being hunted in that house.
Best bit of the film. Yeah.
It is great. And when he's behind that mirror and you see, like, Pedro Pascal approaching the mirror, and the reason that sequence really works is because, like, if this is just, like, a team of, like, street toughs, there's not as much threat. Because Pedro Pascal is so smart, and we believe him as being smart, there's, like, a much better chance he's going to look at that mirror and see something off, which I liked. I liked that there was kind of that smart element to the character. The same way that there was a smart villain, I think, with Teddy in the previous film, it just doesn't feel as well baked.
No, and I commend them for wanting to tackle the sort of the subject matter with Miles. Like, fair enough.
Yeah.
There is a more naturalistic way of tying these two things together. I'm not a screenwriter. I can't come up with it on the fly like that. This felt like they had... I'll almost pitch it like this. This is probably where this started. The Miles character was just a character, much like the security guy in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
There was no sort of father-son relationship going on. And he was written in basically to be a bit of extra leverage in the final sequence. That was really his entire purpose in the screenplay, is to give a little extra stakes that he's in the bonnet of the car. And maybe he was a young African-American in the original screenplay, and Denzel wanted a bit more from that. So they gave him more scenes, which then sort of, you think there's more to it, but there really isn't. It's just two stories that are running coincidentally. Now, if there was less of him in the film and he wasn't played as such a big part of it, it wouldn't really matter to us as viewers that he's just sort of accidentally shoehorned into the final sequence, because it's really sort of inconsequential. It's more about Robert McCall taking down Pedro Pascal.
Mm-hmm.
But because we spent so much time with the Miles character, you feel like that's the payoff. You're like, is this the best you've got?
Yeah. Well, it feels like that's the story they want us to have the most emotion attached to, is like the fate of Miles. But yeah, because it's like the Pedro Pascal stuff feels more like an interruption to that story versus something that is actually progressing it naturally. Like, what does like Miles really learn being thrown in the trunk of a car and shot at? Like, he's definitely scared, but that's not something, he was not wandering down the road of being involved with like high level like black ops operatives.
No, and I think maybe this is a controversial take. I think it actually does the Miles story a bit of a disservice, because he just sort of miraculously changes his opinion. Denzel Washington turns up to his like drug den house where his friends have or whatever.
Yeah.
Threatens him with an Uzi. Cool. Love that. Love a bit of that.
Yep.
And then the kid's basically like, yeah, I do see the error of my ways. You're right. Thank you. What teenager do you know that on the first time they're mildly told off, okay, you can't throw an Uzi in, that does sort of change the variables.
I was going to say, that would have changed things if my father had produced that one during an argument.
Cameron, let's ride.
Yeah. Okay, let's go, Dad.
Okay, Pa, let's go. But you know what I mean? Like, it does feel like it's not fully committing to the story it wants to tell. And if like, I feel there's a way to do the Pedro Pascal story by itself, and also a way to do the Miles story as an Equalizer story. Like, what if the gang like got him into indentured servitude, and he had to work for the gang, and then so then Robert McCall has to take down the gang to get his friend back. Perfect Equalizer film.
Well, I wonder if there's also the problem if you focus on the gang, and the gang is just the low level, right? So if you go up the ladder, then the gang would be connected to higher levels of crime.
Mhm.
and corruption. But does that feel too much like the first one?
Like the first one, and also the third one.
And the third one as well. Yeah, like maybe that's the problem. It's like they're trying to, and also like a lot of the theme of this movie is Denzel's character going home
Mm.
and facing the loss of his wife and coming to terms with who he is at this point in time.
I mean, that's really the C story in the film. Let's be honest, though. That is the background story here.
It kind of is, but it's also all tied to the Pedro Pascal stuff, which is his past.
Sure.
Right? It's his past life coming back and affecting his present life. So it's like he is grappling with that element of himself. It's just that, like, I don't know. It feels like these two things are straining against each other.
Yeah, I think they actually are. Now I'm sitting here sort of processing it and talking with you, and you're all listening as well, hopefully. I feel like this is two different stories that have been smushed together.
But, like, neither one of them is, I feel like, frustrating.
No, I think the CIA one could have had a full film. I feel like that's also another full film. And they both have legs.
They do, and that's the thing. It's like when I watch the movie, I don't watch one plot versus the other in the film and go like, oh, this is a dead end. Like, both of them are pretty engaging, I find. If anything, the CIA stuff falls on the lower level. It's just that, like, when placed together and compared against the first film, it feels wobblier.
Well, because like the Miles story is more approachable.
Yes.
Like it's easier to understand for people. Like we've all been angsty teens.
Mm-hmm.
We all understand. Not all of us have been involved in gang culture, sure, but like we've had our like run-ins with bad crowds. Like that all makes sense. We can all put ourselves in Miles' shoes. The problem is the film doesn't really explain much about why Pedro Pascal is doing what he's doing. Apart from being thrown to the side or something, like once they've had their way with you, you're an asset to an afterthought line that you quoted at the start.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not much of a motivation to literally kill everyone you know.
No. Like, that's the thing. It's like the Pedro Pascal stuff, I think it's really frustrating because that character means nothing to me through most of the movie.
No.
In fact, I'm like making notes as like a vaguely defined former coworker, because that's basically what he is. He's just kind of in rooms, and it's like, okay, well, I guess this guy was something. And then when he meets McCall in the park, he's like, I mourned you for like 7 years. And I'm like, really? Oh, okay. And I do like that scene a lot where Denzel goes to his house.
That's great.
And
I love that.
Yeah, and like Denzel uses the family escape.
Yeah.
I'll get a ride with your wife and kids. See you later.
I'll pick up the little one, sure. And then does like pew pew signs at the guys. Like, oh, fun fact, by the way. Would you like a fun fact?
I think I know the fact, but proceed.
The pew pews that he shoots them in the order that he kills them in the final sequence of the film.
Didn't know that, but that was also Denzel improv.
Ah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So he's doing pew pews. He does a Vulcan salute at one point. Denzel, he was doing some great hand acting in this movie. But like I like that bit there, but it feels like not enough with the Pedro Pascal. If you'd made the villain Bill Pullman, he didn't have great material in the first movie, but at least I have a connection to him.
So what, Bill Pullman in this version takes his own wife out?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying I want that movie. I'm just saying that like they established that character in the first movie.
Kill her!
So it would mean something.
Sure. Well, that's actually one of my dislikes. I think focusing on the female friend and sort of I wrote them down as the Pullman family because I can't remember either of the characters' names.
I know.
It also feels like a bit of shorthand that isn't earned because you spend like one scene with them in the first film and you're expecting people to remember that and kind of remember the relationship. Okay, they like walk out of dinner at one point in the film to sort of establish they all know each other, and then she dies. It's like, okay, who is this person?
They build a lot of the franchise around that Melissa Leo Bill Pullman family, don't they?
Yeah, I there must have been some deleted scenes along the way, but we are getting into the weeds already. I can sense it. They're all over me. It's weedy. Let's get to likes. A lot to like here. We've already named some stuff we enjoyed. I'll lead us off, and I think it's. I think we could all just agree, firstly, that Denzel Washington is. Well, we live in the Washington era, right? That's what we just said before. The Denzel age, right? That's what I said.
The Denzel age, which has been going for many decades, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Probably, if not the best actor working today, among them. He's electric almost every movie he makes.
Let's just say there's a list at Spyhards HQ of people that like pie in the sky I'd love to have on for an interview.
Mm.
And there's some ones you'd obviously get, like Pierce Brosnan, Tom Cruise. Denzel Washington's on there for these films. And a couple of other spy films he's worked on. Is it ever going to happen? Highly unlikely. But I'm going to keep trying.
That's right. And to me, Denzel, you place him in like a powerhouse drama, he is going to just swing for the rafters and probably hit there as well. Like, it's going to be incredible stuff. But he's invaluable in these pulpier action films because he brings so much. You and I on the Patreon reviewed Unstoppable, the runaway train movie with Chris Pine. And do you remember like how many scenes we were remarking were just incredible of watching Denzel think on screen or, talk to himself.
Or just drive a train.
Yeah.
Just driving a train. He's like, wow.
It's like, I'm
Denzel.
watching this man drive a train, and it's the most fascinating thing I've ever seen in my life.
This man is driving that train.
And so, like, when I see his work with Tony Scott or these Equalizer films, I'm like, if you remove him and you throw someone else in this role, these could be, like, the most generic action movies ever made. Like, they may not even stick at all. Whereas,
who's the worst person you could cast as Robert McCall?
Oh, my God.
Contemporary actor. Can't just be some, like, Michael Crawford or something.
Well, it's funny because originally Russell Crowe was attached to the property, but I actually think he would have been okay because you see him in... You see, like, what he does in his kind of later period in movies like, Thor 4 or Unhinged, and he's an actor who's, like, swinging for it. He'll do crazy stuff. He could have made these movies interesting, but, like, who's the worst? It's got to be someone who just delivers... who's willing... Well, I'll tell you who would have been, like, the worst. If they'd made these with Harrison Ford... like a couple decades ago, a decade and a half ago, where he was in his kind of like grumble through a movie phase.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. I was going down the route of someone who couldn't be earnest if they tried.
Yeah.
And that's Jared Leto.
Oh, well, that would be... Boy, would that be a whole other kettle of fish. My God.
It's Lysin time.
I mean, the thing about Jared Leto is you put him in a weird character part, he's pretty good. He can actually sometimes really deliver interesting things, but when you make him the lead...
He's done some okay films. People like to make jokes at Jared Leto. He's played some interesting characters before.
Yeah, I mean, he's been great in several movies I can think of, but like when you put him in the lead of semi-generic action films, even like Morbius, it's like, this doesn't click.
Well, yeah, the whole thing about Robert McCall is he's meant to be this guy. He's like us. He's downtrodden by the man. He wants to help the little guy. I don't get any sense the guy with a cult that actually genuinely follows him on to like islands every year is earnest.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
I'm not saying that Jared Leto has a cult. Please don't sue me, Jared.
You're a member. Like, come on, Scott.
It's not a cult. I'm not drinking Kool-Aid. You are.
Take off your white robe, Scott.
So I think we can sort of leave Denzel there in the sense of everyone listening to this knows that he is the king.
Yeah. I mean, when you just see him off the top of the movie, infiltrating that train and taking down...
I was about to bring that sequence up.
Yeah, where he's dressed as like the Muslim man. Like he's in kind of a disguise and goes on the train. And it's like, he's incredible. Like, you believe that this guy could take down a room full of people without breaking a sweat. It just works. Because it seems like as an actor, he believes it. And so it's conveyed to the audience.
Yeah, I think earnestness was the word I reached for. But it's more like he buys it, so we do.
Yeah.
Like Samuel L. Jackson, I think, is very good with this too. Like, I don't think Samuel L. Jackson is really capable of running S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
But when he's got that eye patch on and he's barking orders at people, I think he just might.
Exactly. Yeah, like there's an authority to both of those actors. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is the obvious like, but we'll put that one aside because it's kind of like, well,
yeah. That's why I started there. So like I'll pivot into something I appreciated, which is just the action sequences. I think some pretty well put together. I'm not sure if anything quite matches up to the Home Depot stuff in the first one, if we're like comparing Equalizer to Equalizer. But that train fight is pretty dang good. Also the big sort of showdown in the hurricane at the end. There's a few other bits and bobs throughout. But it's the authority with which Denzel Washington attacks these sequences that makes them better, because they could just be generic action sequence where 4 men are taken down on a train, but he adds an element to it. Like it's that star power wattage. You just can't. It's just somehow have it, some don't. I don't have it. You certainly don't.
Well, it's like that Western element that they talk about in the press for this movie, where it's like when Denzel strolls into town and you have 5 bad guys after him, you believe that he's going to dole out justice. It is going to happen. Like these guys, the bad guys are the ones in trouble. And so it's watching them get picked off one by one that's kind of the joy. And it's just a different way of watching action movies where in some, there's more of suspense. When you're watching Bruce Willis get his feet cut open in Die Hard, it's like, this guy, is he going to make it to the end? He's getting more and more beaten up. Whereas with Denzel, it's more of this like avenging angel type of character who it's like, he's here to cast judgment on these bad guys. And now we get the pleasure of watching how he's going to do it. That's where more of the excitement comes from. And I think the problem with the hurricane sequence is, and it is alike, because I think it's incredibly well staged. I am convinced they were filming in a hurricane. Like, they did a great job. And from all accounts that I've read, it was miserable to film. Just miserable.
I can believe it. I bet they were all very wet.
Yes. And so it's like Fuqua said, like, he really was often thinking, should I have done this after a day of shooting, because he was just soaking wet and miserable. But on screen, it works. You never even question the reality of it. But if this had been the ending of the first film, we would be doing like backflips over it. The fact that it follows the incredible Home Mart Massacre, it does feel like a step down, and just in terms of how they use the environment to actually deliver the kills.
Well, it's a little less clever.
Yeah.
Like some of the things he uses as weapons of killing people don't feel like natural to the environment.
Like the bag of flour?
Like he's walking through the bag of flour or the harpoon gun from Thunderball.
I guess it is like a fishing community, I suppose, but
I guess. But like I feel like there's a lot of stuff in a home that would be far more fun. Like putting something in a microwave to time it when they walk in a room and it explodes. Like stuff like that. Stuff around the house I think would have just been a bit more fun.
And like the flour one didn't really deliver. He goes to the bakery, sets off the flour in front of the fan, and you're like, well, that didn't deliver kind of that big, fist pumping kill that you kind of hope for.
I mean, is that even? I mean, you work in a bakery. Is that even possible?
I suppose it could be. Yeah, that would make sense. If it's like a really fine flour, it would do that. Yeah.
Well, if you hear of any bakery explosions in Vancouver, folks, you know who did it.
Well, that type of really fine flour is the worst during hay fever. Because let me tell you, that stuff gets into your sinuses when you have hay fever. Oh my God.
Cam's baking hot takes.
That's right. I was going to say about the hurricane sequence too, a moment I really love is Pedro Pascal is up on that tower sniping. And there's the point where he gets like blown completely against the railing by the elements. And it's very visceral. It's like you feel it. You're like, that actually feels like a guy who was caught off guard and thrown against a railing.
I understand having the high ground. Revenge of the Sith taught me this.
Yes.
But I don't know why he put himself up there in the middle of a hurricane.
It would seem like it would be pretty tough to make clear shots with wind that extreme as well. And
just also being pelted by the elements and being right by the sea as well. So you've got open ocean just coming at you. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not neither you nor I are tactical people. I don't think either of us have really even brandished much of a gun in our lives. So maybe we don't know jack.
Well, it's like I did in Disneyland, I rode a roller coaster in the rain.
I wonder where that was going there. In Disneyland, I got in a sniper position and started taking people out. And let me tell you, it was tough.
I was on the Matterhorn. I was on a roller coaster in California Adventure in the rain. It's like you're blind when like you're having that level of kind of like speed and rain happening. Like you're completely blind. And I was like at the front of the car. And so I'm imagining during a hurricane, him up on that tower and like the high degree winds. I don't think he'd be able to see anything.
Worst movie ever.
I was also going to say, though, there's another kill he does where Denzel stabs a guy, and They actually, I don't know if you noticed this, they do POV from the point of view of the guy being stabbed. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, he uses POV a couple of times. There's also I think the flower explosion guy, or maybe the harpoon guy, but they use like an over-the-shoulder camera to follow him, track him as he's like trying to find Denzel. So yeah, Fuqua uses some interesting cinematography. Like there's also a shot, I think, at one point of Denzel walking, but it's upside down.
Right.
For some, I don't know what the theme of that is, what the message is, but it looks interesting.
Well, it's like, a lot of filmmakers could make this movie and it would be super generic.
Mm-hmm.
And Antoine Fuqua could take a, like a script or like a premise that in the different hands could be kind of flat and turn it into something that really pops.
But you haven't really shared your Cam. What do you have?
Well, I mean, I feel like we're kind of on the same page. Like, I think like Antoine Fuqua is doing really good work here and, takes a lot of sequences and makes them really memorable. I think the way he directs that Melissa Leo fight is really effective.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, how many movies have we seen where, I don't know, the partner, the friend, the police chief, or something is killed at the start of a movie and they have to get revenge? And it's usually like a pretty unimaginative sequence where these events happen. And like this one, I think has genuine impact and is really well done. And I think Melissa Leo probably enjoyed being able to actually do some action on screen.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Pullman doesn't get a chance to do anything like that apart from hold a shotgun at one point. So yeah, she actually gets a chance to get bloodied.
Yeah. So like, I think she stands out in this movie, and I think Ashton Sanders as Miles, who he was in the movie Moonlight, which won Best Picture a couple years before this.
Mm-hmm.
I think he brings a lot to that character of Miles. Again, this could be a total stock character in a different film. I think like this could have felt kind of tired, but I really think him and Denzel working together, they're trying to elevate this in what is basically a pulpy genre film, and I think they do a really good effort.
Well, it's one of those things where you put a good director and a good lead actor in this, is obviously going to be better than it should be.
Yeah.
And we said that about the first one, and I do think that continued into the third. So I'm glad that these films do exist, and I'm glad that they're not resting on their laurels, because Denzel could quite easily call this in.
Totally.
He could McCall it in.
And also, there's that whole subplot that doesn't connect to things with Orson Bean and his missing sister.
Can I just... I need to have I've got a moment to moan about this. Can I jump in on that?
You go for it.
So this thing is set up.
Yeah.
With this chap that he picks up, trying to get hold of a painting of his long-lost sister.
Right.
Right? With me so far. And the other main character is a painter.
Yeah.
And the way they resolve this D story is, I think Robert McCall finds his long-lost sister instead of commissioning Miles to remake the painting.
I know. It's
It's
a little
right there.
The thing is, like, that subplot, there's a point where like Melissa Leo has like a just tossed off line to Denzel about, I got some information that may be helpful for you. So clearly that's what leads to the solution. Like, in terms of tacking it on, it's a weakness of the movie. Mm-hmm. But when you have that moment of Orson Bean reunited with his sister at the end of the movie, I'm like, why am I like tearing up watching this?
Oh, you were? I was rolling my eyes. I was like, where's my painting?
I thought this was like such a touching moment, and I'm like, it's because of the actors. It's like well directed. And did you recognize Orson Bean out of curiosity?
No, but I know this was his last ever feature film.
But Seinfeld connection, he played Elaine's much older boyfriend in an episode of Seinfeld, and he had a stroke. I don't know if you remember that episode.
No.
And Elaine had to look after him. It's in probably like season 3 or something like that. It's earlier on. But I always remember that episode, and so when I see him, I always think of Seinfeld.
The only thing I can remember about Elaine's dating life is the guy who played Buzz Lightyear in the cartoon show, who's like the football fan, and
the hockey fan, Putty.
The hockey fan, that's it, Putty. Yeah, that's the only one I can really ever remember, because he can't. He's like a recurring, right? He does a few episodes.
Yeah, he does quite a few. Yeah, Orson Bean showed up in one episode, and actually in the years since, Jerry Seinfeld has said that's the one comedic element he's really not happy with now. Is he feels it went too mean with that storyline, which that's kind of notable. Yeah, so like Orson Bean shows up, I'm like, from Seinfeld. And that's the thing. It's like you give him that moment at the end, and I'm like, This connects. It
You're like,
shouldn't,
cinema.
but it does.
Pure cinema.
It's like kind of shameless, but it works.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Agents, where are you? Why do you hide? Follow that Patreon trail and make Spyhards your guide.
That's right. From Spy TV reviews covering the antics of George Smiley, Jack Bauer, and the Slow Horses to reviews of non-spy movies from your favourite spy actors, there's no more secrets over on our Patreon. But Cam, tell the listeners about this week's top secret broadcast.
Scott, we've been talking about the Equalizer 2 for about an hour now, but what about the original source text that spawned this film franchise that we are tackling? This week we are going back to the original pilot for the classic TV series The Equalizer. Does Edward Woodward hit as hard as Denzel? We're gonna find out.
So accept your mission and help support your favourite spy movie podcast at patreon.com/spyhards.
But before we activate the fourth protocol, let's get back to the spy jinx.
Okay, we've celebrated Denzel, the action sequences, and some long-lost sister action.
Yeah.
There's some dislikes to talk about.
There are.
I'll start. Pedro Pascal.
That was my primary one as well.
Actually, I've got others. So do you want to take Pedro Pascal, and I'll take something else?
Let's just dive into it.
Let's get in
see
there.
where it goes.
Let's dive
Yeah.
into that hole in his eye socket. Right in there.
Right.
It's nice to see Pedro Pascal before he hits his stride with like The Mandalorian and stuff like that. Like I don't know what the year was or what the film was that really like ticked him over. I can't really quite remember, but there was just a moment when Pedro Pascal became hot shit.
Well, the year after this, Mandalorian launches, and then in 2020 he has Wonder Woman 1984,
Right.
which, like, say what you will about the finished film, I think I'm kinder on it than a lot of other people are, but like him being cast as the primary villain was a big deal.
There was also, I mean, for me, and a lot of people in lockdown watched this. It's definitely got millions of views on YouTube, but he was part of the table read of the season 5 episode of Community.
Ah,
Did you ever watch that?
no, I don't think so. No.
So he plays, I can't remember the name of the character, but he replaces Walton Goggins.
Oh,
It's the episode where Pierce has died, and Walton Goggins turns up to do the will
okay.
for everyone, and that's where like Donald Glover finds out he's being given the fortune in the boat to leave the show. That's kind of the whole. That's like the big moment in that episode. But it's like there's a gif of Pedro Pascal losing because it's like he's basically reading this first time round live on this read, and he basically there's a line delivery where he just dies. He laughs so hard he can't get through the scene, and it's an infectious moment. Even if you want to, you can cut a section in here if you want to hear it because it's just funny. But like, or if you don't want to do it, don't. But that was like a real memeable moment, and people love that sort of stuff now with TikTok and all this sort of thing. So I think that also helped punctuate like the Pedro Pascal moment, and that was in 2020.
Yeah, and he's been on top of the world really ever since.
Sure. Yeah. You said Last of Us, Fantastic Four. It's all there. It isn't here. He doesn't have that leading man vibe for some reason.
Nope.
I don't know whether it's more to do with him having a beard. Maybe he Rikered it up. Perhaps he grew his beard and that was it. But yeah, he's just kind of there. His character's not really given much justification for his actions, for his betrayal. Like, you don't really understand what's driving him, and that really is what you need to do for any good villain, is to maybe not like agree with their actions but understand them. And I have no idea why he's doing anything he's doing, and then he is sort of killed off in a 1-to-1 battle, and you're like, okay, I guess that's the end.
Yeah, I mean, I liked his death.
Sure.
Having the knife in the back of the neck and then thrown off the tower onto the rocks. I mean, you can't complain about his death scene, but the problem with him is, like, maybe I would be kinder to this character if this franchise had established right from the get-go that the villains are just kind of like disposable meat to be thrown in the grinder.
Sure.
But, like, Martin Sokas in the first one was really bringing a character to life. Like, you really felt like Teddy was legit dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of personality.
It was a big performance.
It was a big performance. They had a lot of weird quirks to him as well. And so it felt like this is someone who is very formidable going up against Denzel Washington. You know Denzel's going to win, but it still feels like Teddy is someone who's dangerous. I never had any sense of Pedro Pascal being dangerous in this movie.
No.
And he feels like kind of a generic placeholder for a villain.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the character that by the end, I should be rooting for Denzel to take him down, to get revenge for Melissa Leo. And, like, he just feels he feels like he could have been almost just one of the goons. You could have swapped him out with one of the other, members of his team. Like, I wrote down his name as the Weasel. There's like the kind of bearded guy who oversees the assassination at the start of the movie, who, kills the wife and husband at the dinner table.
Yeah.
Like that guy, it's just like a small character actor kind of part, but like he kind of pops as like someone who's like maliciously evil. Whereas with Pedro, I'm just like, I don't really get this guy.
Well, there's a moment, I think that it really turned, well, it didn't turn it for me, but it just sort of solidified that maybe this was the wrong casting. And that is when Robert McCall basically lays his cards out. And he goes, and he like, I think he uses his phone to call Pedro Pascal's phone that proves that he was the person who ordered the hit on Robert McCall. And maybe Pedro, if he was here, he would defend it and say he was playing it subtly, playing it down. But like that is a perfect moment to go from like, oh, welcome to my house, this is my wonderful family, big smiles, to I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like just to drop the pretense. But he doesn't. He just seems to be like a sniveling, weaselly little pencil pusher.
Well, I'll give you a perfect scene that would have been cool to see done here in the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Homecoming, when Peter Parker goes to the house of a Vulture because he's going to go on a date with the Vulture's daughter, and they're in the car. There's no costumes. There's no superheroics or anything like that. And Vulture just like brandishes a gun and just basically out of sight and is just like talking to Peter. And it's all the tension of these two actors bouncing off of each other. If you had like that kind of level of threat going on with Pedro Pascal, maybe there'd be something. Because the thing about Teddy was he was so weird. He was such a weirdo that you're like, well, what? This guy's kind of unpredictable.
Yeah.
Whereas like I don't have any sense of, the Pascal character being anything other than just kind of like a gun for hire who isn't that imaginative.
Well, I feel like they go for sort of the whole banality of evil thing with that. Like it just is what it is. People die. It's fine. Okay, I understand that concept, but I just don't think it really delivers it. And it is a bit of a missed opportunity. And I think both that and the Miles story are both sort of underbaked. And because I think they've tried to shoehorn both in and then bring them together in an unnatural way at the end, you ended up with something that's lesser than the parts of both stories. And I think Pedro is the sort of lightning rod of that problem. Because I think the actor playing Miles does a really good job. I have no problem with, I have no notes for him, actually. I think he was great. But I think Pedro just did, like, either didn't go big enough or the writing wasn't there. I don't mean to fire shots at Richard, who we had on. It was a great interview. I'm not sure if this one was just, baked properly.
Well, it's like, I think like the thematic elements in terms of Denzel going home, that stuff's all perfect. And he talked about that in the interview, which was like, that was the important part of the story, for him was like, that's what this movie's about. But it almost feels like they put in that scene of the flashback of Pedro stabbing Melissa Leo to be kind of the underline as to why he's so despicable, because otherwise you have nothing else. Because if you don't have that moment of him stabbing her, you're like, well, she was killed by the guys that broke into her apartment, or the hotel. That makes sense. Can go with that. Makes sense. It feels like they needed that because otherwise, like, there's nothing particularly despicable about him until you get that moment. And then you want that righteous justice being doled out by McCall.
But nowhere near like you'd want it for, like, against the Ahsoka's character in the first one, or I think seem to want to hurt the villain of the third one, if my memory serves. But like, I just don't feel like there was that tension here. I felt like it was just going through the motions of having a baddie and then killing the baddie.
And in a different movie, this villain would have just been like surrounded by cop cars at the end and been like, well, I'm caught. And you would feel probably about the same.
Yeah. Ah, shucks. You got me.
Yeah.
The rest of my dislikes are kind of little things.
Okay. I mean, I feel like with a lot of the dislikes I would have brought up that we've already talked about them. It's just in terms of balancing the elements and making it all work. So why don't we go to your smaller ones?
Well, I think I didn't like that the film didn't follow up on the first film.
Mm.
Well, I guess that is just how the series is. But at the end of the first film, and I know that wasn't something they liked doing, Richard Wenk told us this, but having at the end of the film, Robert McCall putting out a sort of ad online, if you're struggling, you need help, you call the Equalizer. Instead, that's dropped, and he's a Lyft driver. And that's how he was sort of introduced to all these problems, more or less. I did think this was going to be Collateral for a minute.
Right, yeah.
Which could have been interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I should have mentioned this in the likes. The car action sequence where he has the guy in the back of his car.
Good stuff. Yeah.
That's one of the great action scenes in the movie, too, and really well done. But I like that, up front you have him as the Lyft driver and always able to listen in on the most crucial conversations in his, passengers' lives to help them. But you get that sequence of him taking down like the douchey tech bros after they've abused a woman, and I'm like that. I like that they were initially going kind of episodic of having him solve a series of problems based on his passengers.
Well, shout out to the chap who worked as sort of the firearms expert and technical advice from the film, Mick Gould, who's got credits like Ronin, Long Kiss Goodnight, Taken, Heat. This, it's clear they had some like people behind those sort of sequences that knew what they were doing.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing is I just feel like the whole death of the Pullman, Mrs. Pullman, just wasn't earned particularly because again they didn't really give her much in the first film, and so that we're meant to like be sort of, oh no, but I barely remembered she existed.
I know. Yeah.
So those are my two like little things. So let's just go to like final notes then before we get to the knock list. Have you got some stuff to bring up?
Yes, I've got a few things. I thought there's a lot of scenes in this movie where Denzel has to stare at laptops. And I'm like, you know what? Denzel makes staring at laptops as effective as him driving trains. Like, imagine like an actor, going back to what we were saying earlier, but imagine a different actor just sitting here through a lot of this movie silently staring at laptops. It would not work. Denzel somehow makes this work.
You believe he wants to know what's on that laptop.
You do. Another note I had was the hurricane sequence. He's managed to find time to staple pamphlets of Melissa Leo all over the walls, like posters of her. And I'm like, this is reminding me of Spectre. And it's like, come on. He wouldn't have time to do this. And also in a hurricane, they'd probably be blown away anyway.
Maybe he's got a really good stapler because of working at Home Depot.
That's possible. Yeah, maybe that's like his skill set. One of the skill sets that he has on top of many others.
Some of my notes, I'll chuck them in. What is it with Pedro Pascal and having his eyes gouged out?
I don't know.
It happens. The first time it happened was in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Famously from the books, that's how that character dies. Fine with that. But this film gets his eye taken out. He did a film a couple of years after Game of Thrones I've forgotten the name of where he has his eyes gouged out. And I think, isn't he blinded in Wonder Woman?
I don't think he's blinded, no.
Then I'm forgetting, and there's something else, but there is another film where he has his eyes taken out. People let me know if I'm going crazy, but I think there's a fourth one. And it's so much a thing now that for years, people would try in like photo ops before Pedro Pascal was the big name he is now. He would go to comic book conventions because of Game of Thrones usually. And people would want to like do the eye thing with him.
Right.
Like try and gouge his eyes out in the photo. And he was always game for it. And then he got pink eye.
Oh, okay.
And so he banned it from any future photo ops.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't blame him.
Yeah. Wash your hands, folks. Jeez.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, no kidding. I was going to note another one, and I referenced this earlier, but like the final fight with him and Denzel on that tower, that is two stunt doubles going at it.
Yeah.
It's very obvious.
Well, it's also like in a completely contained green room. with the like fake water and like gusts of wind being blown at them, so you barely see faces anyway.
I know, but they are like flipping each other all over the place, and there's never a moment where I was like, I'm watching Pedro Pascal and Denzel fight.
Hey, Pedro's still quite young then, and not as well known, so maybe he was doing some of his own stunts, but Denzel was watching from the sidelines, just shouting his grunts in. Ugh! Ugh!
Like, you got this. You got this.
You do it, buddy. I'll keep reading this book. Last two notes from me. Firstly, great to see Vargas V2. Vargas lives, everyone. There's a harpoon gun death.
Of course. Yeah. He got the point.
He got the point. And apparently, according to IMDb, and this is IMDb, take it with a pinch of salt, it's the same harpoon gun used that Quint used in Jaws.
I don't know about that. That
I'm surprised
seems like
I brought this up and you didn't. I'd go check that out, Cam, because you're the Jaws expert here.
I think this is a stretch.
Cam's gonna like get back to me in a week's time, be like, "I'm so sorry, I got this wrong." I went back and rewatched both films.
I have real questions about that one.
Okay, farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Last question, more of an open, just a debate question before we get to the knock list. In the first film, we see Robert McCall working, sort of like laying low, working at Home Mart or whatever it was called.
Yep.
In this film, he's working as a Lyft driver. Again, another sort of a job you could definitely lay low doing. Which would you rather have? I know you can't drive, but let's pretend you can.
Sure. I think Lyft, you know what? I was going to say Lyft driver, but the thing is, like, I've talked to enough Uber drivers. The hours can be awful.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
A lot of them work all night because that's where, like, a lot of the better money is and the better fares. So I would take the Home Mart just for the hours, period. And also, you can have times where you're joking around with colleagues and stuff. I would take Home Mart, I think, pretty much every time.
I think I would take Lyft,
Would you?
Something about, like, being your own boss a little bit that's quite appetizing to me. Like, I can go to the restroom when I want to go to the restroom. I can not take that fare. I can take an hour off to go and pick up someone or go have lunch somewhere or meet someone. It's sort of my own thing. And if I'm just plowing along, I can listen to really obnoxious radio stations, so my passengers have to listen to it.
You don't think Home Depot employees can go to the bathroom when they want?
A lot of people who work in like department stores and big like shops like that need to ask permission to go off of the shop floor.
I mean, you just kind of throw it over your shoulder as you're walking out, but yeah.
I mean, I don't think what I said there was that controversial. And
okay,
we're adults here, and I think we should be allowed to use the toilet when we want to.
Okay, well, I wasn't as bathroom focused in my answer, but there you go.
But I've won you over because you really need to use the bathroom right now.
Sure. And you can't really go whenever you want if you're a Lyft driver. What if you're doing like a drive that's like 45 minutes and you got to go?
Screw them.
Well, that has to happen, right?
That's what the bottle's for, Cam.
Oh, Jesus.
I'll just put the old blind up so they can't see it.
Sure.
Apparently I'm driving a limo. I don't know. Let us know, folks. Lyft or Home Mart? What would you rather work in? We're split down the middle. We can't decide. Cam thinks I'm mad, and I think Cam's mad for wanting to do like the same thing every day, talking to people who don't know anything. I want to talk to rando strangers about their holidays and all the joyous moments. I like that. And that was one moment I liked about this in this film, where he's still doing the montage of driving different people and experiencing the joy and the pain of just seeing glimpses into people's lives.
It's a good thing I'm not in this movie, because it would just cut to me like staring at my phone silently for like 5 seconds.
And that's why we don't let you drive.
Well,
okay, knock list time. Equalizer 1 didn't do it. Could Equalizer 2 score a strike?
No. Equalizer 2, I think, is it's not a huge step down from the original, but it's a minor step. And the first one didn't make the knock list, and I think ergo the second one's not making the knock list either.
Can't argue with that assessment. I think the last 90 minutes have shown that too. A lot to enjoy here. You've still got Denzel Washington. I think a lot of people will just have this film on. Like, it's on Amazon Prime here in the UK. I would just probably put it on from time to time if I was just on Amazon Prime and I needed something to entertain me, because it's entertaining. But is this a must-see spy movie? No. So don't think this is like an indictment on the film, us saying no to the knock list. it just doesn't measure up to North by Northwest.
But also, I do want to give the Equalizer series some credit, which is that when we did the Taken films, which have a similar kind of dad action movie vibe, very much set up the bad guys and watch your lead just bulldoze through them. I think these Equalizer films, even just going off the first two, are hitting a higher bar than the Taken films were as a franchise.
I agree. I think the Taken films have their own unique energy to them, and there's some things that they do that this doesn't do. But I think in terms of artistry, you'll find more of that in the Equalizer films.
And consistency. Taken 2 is a big step down from the first one.
Yep. And we'll find out about Equalizer 3 when we get to that later this year. But there you go, folks. 2 no's. No is our answer to Equalizer 2. It is not making the Knotlist dossier on the film is complete and filed as classified. We did it, Cam. Another Equalizer equalized.
Boom. Bring on part 3.
Here we go. But that's us for now when it comes to Denzel. But what are we tackling next time, Cam?
We are reuniting with the team behind a Knocklist inductee, The Spy in Black. This one goes way back. That was a, I think, 1939 film, I think.
Yep.
And we are going to look at the other Powell and Pressburger with Conrad Veidt film, Blackout, a.k.a. Contraband, depending on where you live. And yeah, 2 titles, but I'm really excited to watch this one because Conrad Veidt we've definitely seen in a number of movies at this point, and always delivers.
And also, you know, for those who are long-time listeners, they'll know there's like a little bit of a tortured history with us in this film because there are a couple of times where we tried to review it and it's disappeared off of being online.
Yeah.
So it looks like it is this time. So we're having a special to celebrate it. We've been told a lot of good things about it. I'm excited to go back to the team because I really love The Spy in Black.
Yeah, and I'm really curious if they can hit that level of quality with this second film.
And how much butter is featured.
Exactly. I mean, in this movie, it's so big, it's got 2 titles.
It doesn't get much better than that. So there you go, folks. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to join us next week as we take a look at Contraband or Blackout from 1940. If you don't already, you listening, you join us over on Patreon. Otherwise, Cam will come round and break your back.
Or just blow flour in your face.
Probably the latter, truth be told. I mean, I've met Cam enough times to know he's a bit of a pushover.
It's true.
He's definitely like the sort of person that walks up to a line of like riot police officers and hands them over a Diet Coke.
What? Why Diet Coke?
I wouldn't give you the pleasure of being full fat Coke. I just feel like he would be like a Diet Coke kind of guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like, oh, he's a Diet Coke, is he?
I mean, or New Coke.
Oh.
The Coke that doesn't even exist anymore.
You are that old.
From my collection.
Yeah. Don't open it, though. You'll probably irradiate the whole apartment block.
I'm like, hey, do you want New Coke or Crystal Clear Pepsi? You tell me.
Have you had any of those in your life?
I've had Crystal Clear Pepsi, but not New Coke.
How was Crystal Clear Pepsi?
I thought it was okay when I would buy it in high school sometimes. It tastes kind of like Pepsi, but with more citrus flavor to it.
I would probably drink that.
I liked it at the time, although people talk about how horrible it was, so maybe I just had terrible taste. I don't know.
Hey, you spend all time with me, so...
I know, right? So.
And if you have more terrible taste, folks, you at home, you listening, have terrible taste, come and join us on the Patreon, patreon.com/spyhards. Plenty of terrible taste, just because it's us.
That's right.
What a rousing thumbs up to the Patreon. Come and join us there. But no, seriously, folks, over 100 bonus episodes, and you'll help keeping the lights on here at Spyhards HQ. And speaking of spending time with us, come and join us on social media at Spyhards, wherever you might social your media. But until next time, folks, I'm heading off to the shops to find a bottle big enough for my upcoming job at Lyft.